Flight 784, JFK to London Heathrow. The first-class boarding was announced over the speakers. Now boarding our first-class passengers. Welcome aboard. Inside the lounge, men in designer suits closed their laptops. A woman wearing diamond earrings tucked away her iPad. The room smelled of expensive cologne, fresh espresso, and quiet arrogance. Then came Marcus Bell, black hoodie, simple jeans. Clean sneakers, but not the designer kind. His backpack was plain. No Louis Vuitton, no Gucci tags. Just a regular man in the eyes of the rich. As Marcus approached the gate agent paused for just a second. Her smile stayed polite, but her eyes flicked to the ticket twice, almost as if to double-check. First class. Him, she forced a smile anyway. Welcome aboard, sir. First-class cabin is to the left. On board the plane. Marcus stepped onto the plane and walked toward seat 2A. The first-class cabin wasn't just quiet, it was cold. Eyes followed him. Some passengers barely hid their stares. Others whispered openly. A flight attendant leaned to her colleague and muttered under her breath, "Are you sure he's in the right seat?" The "you don't belong here" look. It wasn't new. Internal monologue. Funny how no one asked the white passengers what they do for a living. Funny how no one asked the old man in row 1 if he won a raffle. But me, a black man in first class, they assume it's a mistake. The silence of racism, they didn't use slurs. They didn't yell. But the message was loud. "You're not supposed to be here," Marcus's response. He just smiled, opened his tablet, and started reading the latest airline ownership financial reports. Why? Because the company they thought he didn't belong in. He didn't try to fit in. He owned it. Marcus settled into his seat, 2A. He didn't adjust his hoodie, just sat quietly, pulled out his tablet, and opened his business reports. The screen glowed softly in the dim cabin light. While others scrolled through movies and luxury watch catalogs, Marcus was reviewing a $50 million acquisition deal. Well, but the whispers didn't stop. Behind him, a passenger in a navy blue suit whispered, "Must be an assistant. Maybe security for someone rich." Another voice followed. "Probably here to help load luggage when we land." A man across the aisle, middle-aged, expensive Rolex, sharp tie, leaned over, pretending to make friendly conversation. That fake politeness that hides real disrespect. The man smiled. "Hey, buddy, do you work for someone here? You traveling to assist someone important?" Marcus looked up calmly. His face was polite. His lips smiled. But his mind? His mind was steel. Because this wasn't the first time. It's not the first time someone mistook his presence for a mistake. It's not the first time someone assumed he was the help. Not the first time they thought success had a color and it wasn't his. Internal thought, if only you knew. If only you knew that while you're wondering who I work for. I'm reviewing contracts for the planes you're sitting in. I don't work for anyone here. They work for me. But Marcus didn't say that out loud. He just nodded politely and went back to his screen, letting his business reports load. Reports about his own airline's profits. Dinner service started. The cabin lights dimmed to a soft glow. Flight attendants in crisp uniforms moved gracefully through first class, serving glasses of champagne and plates of caviar. When it was Marcus's turn, the mood changed. A young flight attendant, Emily, approached Marcus's seat. Her hand shook slightly as she placed the tray in front of him. Maybe it was nervousness. Maybe it was something else. But as she leaned forward, the tray slipped from her hands, as if it wasn't worth making a sign because Marcus wasn't worth it. Another crew member, Tom, passed by, smirked, trying to make it into a joke. "Don't worry, sir. You can clean it yourself, right?" Laughter followed. 2 passengers chuckled quietly into their napkins. The businessman across the aisle let out a short laugh, then looked away, pretending to sip his wine. Marcus sat still. He felt the warm food soaking into his clothes. He heard the echoes of disrespect bounce off the cabin walls. But he said nothing. Internal monologue. "Funny. When you think I'm a janitor, you expect me to clean my own lap. But when you find out who owns this airline, we'll see who's still laughing." Marcus reached for a napkin. He calmly wiped his hands. Not his pride that stayed spotless. He kept his cool, because he knew something they didn't. He was their boss. What they didn't know was this. Marcus Bell started from nothing. Not middle class. Not comfortable. Nothing. He was born in the projects of Atlanta, in a neighborhood where opportunity didn't even drive by. The walls of his apartment were thin. Some nights he slept to the sounds of sirens and arguments, not lullabies. At school, kids bullied him for his skin color, for his shoes with holes in them, for his accent that carried the weight of struggle. "You're poor, Marcus. You'll never be nothing. People like you don't fly planes, you clean them." But Marcus was different. While other kids played basketball at the park, Marcus sat on the apartment rooftop, eyes locked on the sky. He watched planes streak across the clouds, leaving white trails in the blue. He didn't just want to fly one, he wanted to own the whole fleet. At night, when his friends were out, Marcus stayed in, studying. Old flight manuals from the thrift store, YouTube videos about airline logistics, free online PDFs about business and aviation. At 17, Marcus got his first airport job loading luggage on planes. At 22, he was the guy cleaning the toilets in the aircraft cabins. People laughed at him. They called him the help, the bathroom boy, the kid who'll never go anywhere but economy. But Marcus didn't see it as humiliation. He called it learning. Internal monologue. They see a janitor. They see free training. They think I'm stuck here. But I'm just studying the game. From the ground up, he memorized every part of the airport system. From logistics to fueling, maintenance to management, he learned what no business school could teach: the real workings of the airline world. While they called him the help, he was building the blueprint for his empire. Marcus never wasted a second, not even when he was pushing luggage carts in the rain. While other workers laughed and complained during breaks, Marcus had one earbud in, listening to business podcasts. Not music, not gossip, just lessons from people who built empires. He learned about logistics management, supply chain operations, private equity deals. It's how airlines really made their money while pushing carts. He was pushing his mind, step by step, shift by shift. At 25, Marcus took his first risk. With the money he saved from cleaning planes, loading luggage, and skipping every luxury, he started his own logistics company. It wasn't fancy. It had one used van, one old laptop, and a dream. He handled airport deliveries, moving parts for aircraft, handling cargo routes that no one else wanted. He worked 16-hour days, no weekends off, no vacations. But Marcus wasn't playing small. By 30, he had reinvested every penny, started buying private jets, the same jets he used to clean. Now, he owned a fleet. CEOs and celebrities rented his planes. People who wouldn't have spoken to him in first class now called him sir. But Marcus didn't stop. Success wasn't his finish line. It was his starting point. At 35, he made the boldest move of all. He bought out a struggling airline, one that everyone else thought was doomed. Bell Aviation was born. He rebranded it, rebuilt it, turned it from bankruptcy into profit. And the plane he was sitting on tonight, it wasn't just any plane. It was his plane. Flying on his airline, operated by his staff, serving his passengers. While the world whispered that he didn't belong, he was the owner of the very system they thought excluded him. Funny how life works. I used to wipe the windows of these jets. Now, I own the runway. Halfway through the flight, the captain himself stepped out of the cockpit, a rare sight on any commercial flight. The cabin grew quieter as he walked down the aisle, his polished shoes tapping softly against the carpet. When he reached the first-class section, he didn't glance at the other passengers, not at the CEOs, not at the influencers, not at the hedge fund managers sipping champagne. He walked straight to Marcus Bell, the same Marcus they had whispered about, the same man they thought didn't belong. The captain stood tall, adjusted his cap slightly, and with a respectful smile said, "Mr. Bell, thank you for flying with us today. On behalf of the entire crew, we appreciate having the owner on board." Silence swallowed the cabin. Glasses stopped clinking. Forks froze midair. The color drained from faces. The businessmen who had smirked earlier looked down at their watches, suddenly shy. The flight attendants' tight smiles faded into stunned stillness. No one moved. No one laughed now, because the man they mocked, he wasn't just a passenger. He owned the plane. When the flight landed, the wheels touched down smoothly on the runway. The cabin lights came on, seatbelts clicked open. But this time, the usual chatter was missing. No whispered jokes, no side-eye glances, no fake polite smiles. The same passengers who had mocked Marcus during boarding, now they sat quietly, their faces pale, their eyes heavy with regret. As the doors opened, Marcus stood up from seat 2A. He adjusted his hoodie, still simple, still humble, and picked up his plain backpack. He didn't rush. He didn't need to, because this time, no one questioned if he belonged. No one dared to ask if he had the right seat. No one laughed about raffles or first-time flyers. They just watched silent, stunned as the man they doubted became the man they now admired. The man they tried to belittle. He walked off that plane as their boss. Racism, ignorance, and judgment are some of the heaviest baggage you'll ever carry. But here's the truth. If you keep your focus, if you keep moving forward, you'll fly higher than anyone ever thought possible. They'll doubt you because of your skin, because of your accent, because of your clothes. Let them. Because one day, you'll own the company they thought you'd never even walk into. You won't just get a seat at the table, you'll own the whole building. If this story inspired you, hit subscribe now.